Welcome to the allotment update, June, and it's Sunday, first Sunday in June. First thing I want to show you is how the raspberries are getting on. And these are summer fruiting raspberries. Originally when I took the plot on, I got these, well, I found a couple of them being strangled at the bottom of the allotment up against the elder and other trees, so I transplanted them slowly as they grew up. And basically propagate themselves, and now some years later I've got one set here, and over the back I've got some raspberries there, and then I planted some autumn fruiting ones as well next to them here, which are golden ones. I brought some beetroot down to join the other beetroot. I bought two sets of these beetroot, and basically they've done very well. I had to take them out of the original punnets, and I managed to get at least, well, 10 to 12 of these trays, and they've now been with me for about a month, so they're ready to be transplanted down to the allotment. The Desiree potatoes, I've got 4 lots of these in sacks, and I'm basically earthing them up myself. So over the last few weeks these have really come on, and basically I won't be adding much more earth to these as is, so the Desiree's done very well. And I'm trying also with some chamomile. I'm going to grow some of it in tubs. These are just about to come into flower. And also on a plot, the seeds haven't come up yet. This plot marked out here is going to be chamomile as well. I put the seeds in about 10 days ago. My red discovery apple, which gave me no fruit last year, down to the fact it's been treated correctly and pruned correctly, is now going to give me a decent crop this year, and that's because basically I've looked after it properly and looked up on how to get a crop. I'm not going to get a bumper crop this year, but I really have learned a lot about these dwarf fruit trees from reading around, etc. Some of the chard has gone to seed now. I might collect some of the seed from this chard, Swiss chard. It's been really a great success, been using it a lot in cooking, and the guinea pigs like it. A number of these, one of them even fell over in the heavy rains that we had recently, so I've had a good innings with it. The Pablo beetroot, 1 square has gone in here. I might find some room for some of my new ones amongst this lot here, and they seem quite happy there. In the corner there I've got a cutting off a damson. Not only am I trying from seeds, I'm also trying little green stem cuttings as well in the allotment. Let's just see what works. So far growing from seed seem to have worked. And I've got a little wild flower square together with a damson here, which is now about 2 feet high. And these are coming into flower for the first year actually. As you can see, some of these flowers are coming on these wild flowers. This is to attract more pollinators onto my site. The sweet corn, I got about 20 of these, and I bought these as seedlings. A bit of a struggle really. I had to bring them indoors at first because they were being eaten outside, but now that they're tall enough to fend for themselves, here they are. I've also planted, they're in lines because I know they're wind pollinated, but I've also planted separately where I've got some gaps, some baby sweet corn, and I grew those from seed myself, been quite pleased with them, and I've got about another 20 of them at home which have just germinated over the last couple of days, so I'll be bringing them down later. So the ones that I've got which have grown myself are called mini pot. These Saxa dwarf beans, being quite slow to germinate, I put them in directly from seed, and some of them are only just coming up now, and basically these should be okay without staking. And now that the weather's turned a bit cooler and expecting some rain over the coming week, I'll be a bit happy with these. I've had to come down and water over the last 10 days quite a lot just to keep an eye on them. My broad beans have been in longer than the dwarf French, and these are just coming into flower now. A few pesky ants around, of course, so I shall be dealing with those later, and keeping an eye out to see if we've got looks like we've got some black fly on those, so they'll be detergented soon. I might make a little bit of a solution. I've got some eucalyptus and some lemon balm, might be handy, and a bit of garlic. Chop it up, put it in a bit of a spray. Of course you can squash the black fly, and I know you've got to pinch these out anyway, so these will need a bit of care. Fairly pleased with the strawberries this year, and I've started cropping them. So basically adding the straw underneath the strawberries has been a good idea. There'll be a few ripe ones I can pick tonight. Rhubarb's past its picking time now. I mean, I suppose you could take the odd stalk in June, but I like to leave the plants to recover, and I've been actually giving them a bit of feed, watering them, and I'll have to get rid of these pesky vines. They seem to be everywhere, and you've got to really get them back to source, hand weed them out. This year I've got 3 of these white currants. Just thought I'd try something different, because I've got black currants down here. They grow extremely well, of course well known for their vitamin C, and the white currant and red currants will go together with the black currants. These have been badly affected by a sort of rust, a fungus rust, basically picked all the affected leaves off, and you have to be vigilant with these plants. And hopefully this will be my first set of white currants on the first of the 3 I put in. Always pleased to see blackberries in flower, because I know that they're a very unruly and vicious thorny plant, and grow extremely well in the Midlands here in England, around the River Trent where I am. Vicious thorny variety we have here, but very large, very juicy blackberries. So it's sort of, when you pick them, you get scratched and cut up quite badly. I don't wear gloves, but you get the reward, you see. You get your berries, and they looks like it's going to be a good year for these. Got 2 of these 320 litre compost bins, and they're stacking up nicely. That one's my first one I'm working on, and when that one's full, obviously I'll be working on this one. I believe if you have to turn them over, you know, make sure they're not too damp, etc. inside. And they've got lesser chard that fell over in the storm, and some old garlic stalks, which I can make a bit of a pesticide out of. The Stuttgarter and Turbo onions are doing well. These were planted in an area where I had some green manure previously, and they seem quite happy here. And I've added some horse manure, rotted horse manure, a bit of compost as well, and they seem fairly happy down. My second patch of strawberries has been put under nets, under a fine mesh net, 10mm, and I've used some pegs and some bricks, etc. Got a little bit tired of the pigeons, etc., wood pigeons, etc., helping themselves, so I decided to save the crop. And I can lift it up occasionally, because you know you need to sort of allow pollinators in and out. But it's been good so far. Made some jam already. This is one of my Bramleys, which is a dwarf rootstock Bramleys, and it's been doing well this year. I've had to treat it a lot to get rid of ants. I've used bicarb and detergent, and it's benefited a lot from that treatment, also being correctly pruned and having any rust, any fungus removed. So I shall be getting some nice Bramleys hopefully later on. This plum tree, and this Victoria, has done extremely well, and I used the paintbrush method, the watercolour paintbrush method of pollinating this myself in March. Blossoms very early this year, and it's a dwarf rootstock. So basically that's my advice if you want to get plums in a cold climate like the UK on a dwarf rootstock. They're not as vigorous as a fully grown plum tree, so you're going to have to intervene yourself when the pollen comes out. I actually think with some of these dwarf rootstocks that the actual flowers come out earlier than other trees. Don't forget, it is just a branch on a dwarf rootstock. The herb garden's been quite successful this year, and I've introduced a little bit of elder there, which I'll control. There's some chamomile, Roman chamomile, and also other chamomile, German chamomile, about to come into flower. There's self-heal there, also vervain, that little bushy plant there, citrus scented little fir trees we've got in, dwarf varieties. The mint's done very well. Lavender also, a number of specimens of lavender. I've even put some roses in. These are beautiful. I've used these, actually some rose petals in a drink I've made with this tree at the back here, the older tree here, which is beautifully in flower, and the birds have been nesting in this tree, of course. And the bay tree, which came originally from my garden as a bush, has done extremely well. There's some blackberries which I've transplanted as well, and also of course we've got rosemary, and to the right of that is my specimen, of course, which I'm waiting for. My damsons, one here and another damson just there, oregano, more rosemary, lemon balm here. We've also got some thyme and sage as well here, and more bay specimens which I got these as like hedging plants initially, and another nice white rose there as well, and more lavender. And on the fringes of here, besides the parsley which is in a little bowl there, also got some celery leaf again which has been potted. They've done very well. And also some nice jasmine which I've had to sort of stake out to protect itself. More oregano and more thyme, and basically the lavender, my first set of lavender here in flower this year, as you can see. So all in all, I'm very pleased, and lots of mint there, and at the back there growing up the reed there I've got some passion flowers which are yet to flower yet. And of course at the very back there's a nice wild buddleia there to attract more pollinators, and I should have some blackberries there of course coming up, which is spilling over. So all in all, very happy with how the herb garden's getting on. Some new wildflowers to join my collection. This one's called yarrow, otherwise known as soldier's woundwort, used by herbalists in the 17th century and previously. It has quite a sharp taste, and the young foliage, white flowers and feathery leaves. It's ornamental. There we go. Provides nesting material for our native birds as well, so a useful wildflower, that one. Yarrow. This is oxeye daisy, which is a perennial. It's a native wildflower and very good for pollinators as well, part of the new collection. Another wildflower called mullein, spelled M-U-L-L-E-I-N. This was used in medieval times for making lamp wicks, and also for tinder before cotton was used for lamp wicks. And also I believe it had medicinal uses as well to treat lung complaints. So there we go, that's another wildflower. This wildflower is called night flowering catchfly, and has delicate pink and white flowers that come out at night time. And it was believed to have been brought to Britain by Neolithic farmers. And also the flowers are supposed to be lovely fragranced flowers, so pollinators that are out around the evening might catch the delights of this one. Not flowered yet, but it's new. This is called rough hawkbit, the roots of which are used to make a coffee, ground up, and also it was used to treat jaundice at one time. Basically it's also of course useful for pollinators, and it's a wildflower suitable for nectar feeding pollinators, including bees. A rich supply of insects, a valuable food source for garden birds as well. So there you go, it must be presumed it's the seeds etc. the flower about to form there. This is another wildflower called salad bonnet, and was used in by early settlers to the Americas, basically to make cattle fodder. So they'd bring the seeds across and plant it to make acres and acres of cattle fodder. You can use the young leaves basically in salads as well. So it has got, other than a pollinating use and use for cattle fodder, it has its other uses. Salad bonnet. This is where I planted my dwarf French beans, Purple Queen it's called, yesterday. And they're planted a bit deeper than I often plant things about 2 inches, it says. This ground has been prepared by lime, horse manure, and also dug over, and also we've had brassicas on last year, so I thought I'd put some dwarf French bean on this year. Well, that's it for this evening then, on the Sunday then, and I hope things are doing well for you, and I'll sign off now until next time.